Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the seventh Combermere Live interview. Today is January the 30th in the year of our Lord 2024, and this is hosted by Livestream Productions Network, and this is the seventh Combermere Live interview. And in the studio, we are honored and indeed humbled to have an outstanding Combermerean, an outstanding Barbadian, and indeed an outstanding Caribbean person in the form of retired Lieutenant Colonel Trevor T. Browne. And Trevor, if you don't mind, that people will have to understand that tonight I'm going to refer to you as TT, the name that we've affectionately known you as our Sergeant Major, as our mentor, as our friend for several years at Combermere School and beyond. So welcome, TT Browne, to the studio, and welcome to Combermere Live interview. How are you, sir?
I'm very, very good. Thank you very, very much for your welcome. I'm not sure how I qualify to have this honor, but it really is an honor to be part of this show.
Thank you, Trevor. Well, indeed, you are just too humble. And one of the things I question is how can a man that has lived your life condense your CV into one page? I still can't understand it. But it's the measure of the man, though, because it's not about a lot of long talk. You're just about getting things done. And we're going to ask you questions related to your early life, pre-Combermere, Combermere School, of course, and then post-Combermere in this extraordinary life that you have led. But before we go, I want to ask you, TT, before too many people join, which one of the Strong boys give you the most trouble at school? And remember, I live in Barbados with you, and my other brother lives in New York, in New Jersey. He really can't do you nothing. So I just want to ask you which one of us gave us more trouble.
No, I fully understand that, but there's no question. It was you. Although it wasn't always possible to determine who was who.
Yeah.
Clearly it was you.
Trevor, welcome again. And we got a number of your colleagues, your school colleagues, your friends of Combermere, some younger. As a matter of fact, all of them younger right now. And we can be joined, of course, in the studio by a number of other Combermereans who will be listening to the show. And I just want to ask you, just take us back a little prior to Combermere School and give us a little synopsis of your life growing up and what could have shaped you, the man that you've become.
Well, very briefly, my life before Combermere was, but now you make me think about it, very, very interesting. It was typical village life, country life, and my recollections are of being, tell you true, unbelievably happy, carefree. I mean, words like that. I must tell you, I did have the best possible parents that anyone could ask for.
Wow.
A mother that was a homemaker, always home, always there, always you could stand on, and a father that even today I still am amazed at how much I admire him, and he influenced my early part of my life beyond I can't explain how much. So it was, my early life was typical village life, filled with family and friends in a fairly confined area. But the boundaries were church, primary school, and occasional picnic to Bath or someplace like that. And very, very occasionally a trip to town to buy a pair of shoes or something.
Well, that's actually quite interesting. And to hear of the influence, and even today that your parents would have had on you, that's amazing, because that sort of segued beautifully into some of the other questions, because you excelled as a table tennis aficionado. Was that pre-Combermere, or that was honed at Combermere School?
No, that was actually post Combermere. That was a late stage development. And let me make it clear. My table tennis activities were mostly at the administrative level.
Okay.
As president, and I was president of the Caribbean Table Tennis Federation and the Latin America. So I mean, I did play, and I still play, and trust me, I beat many young people. As recently as today, I dismissed a couple of youngsters. So I do play, but my career in table tennis really was mostly at the administrative level.
Oh, well, that's actually a bit of a surprise, guys. Seem to recall you knocking up something at in the canteen at Combermere.
Yeah. I'm not just knocking it. I mean, I play pretty well too. I mean, you have to bring people to Courtney Spring and that's all fellas to.
Wow. Yeah. But TT, you would have entered Combermere. I'm trying to date back. I was 66. You would have to be something like 64, 63. You would. 63.
Yeah.
You entered the hallowed halls of Combermere School. Tell me, what was that like?
Well, actually, that was a life-changing experience. So if you understand how I try to explain my pre-Combermere life, the village, very limited. I mean, what Combermere was a complete eye-opening experience to the world. And actually, thinking about it, my years at Combermere really was an education, not from an academic perspective, but from the perspective of moving from a very limiting country existence to actually understanding that the world is a complicated place, that you have to be prepared to live in it, and actually prioritizing the critical values that you are needed for success. And it just happened that around the time at Combermere, there were a number of people, both on staff and other students, who seemed to be ideally designed to provide that kind of education. So Combermere was the purest form of education. Now I look back 50 years since. It was what transformed me from being an innocent, carefree little village boy who knew nothing to someone who was now being prepared to live in a complicated world.
You know, Trevor, I think you have just echoed nearly the identical sentiment of nearly everyone who has passed through that school. And I believe that you're probably referring to people like the Harry Seelys, the Dighton Maynards, and those who would have influenced your life completely. You know, I just made you into the man that you were, but you would have found your niche, your calling into the sciences. What kind of age were you at when you recognized that you had that ability to move into the sciences more so than anything else?
No, I wouldn't take that kind of credit. I mean, the truth is, most of the good things that I did in my life, I have to honestly tell you, I didn't voluntarily do them. I mean, people, the truth is, I did not like mathematics, for example. And as you know, you can't be an engineer if you don't like mathematics. I always wanted to be an engineer, but for some reason I didn't like mathematics until one day, Harry Seeley, who wasn't teaching me, walked into a class as substitute for a teacher, asked us what we were doing, and it happened to be simultaneous equations, which we all in the class thought was the most complicated thing in the world. And in 5 minutes, Harry Seeley made it look like drinking milk.
Yeah.
And then, but what was worse than that is that every time he saw me since that, he insisted on knowing how he was doing the math. So having to give him a negative answer, which I knew he would go and check with somebody.
Yeah.
I actually started to do a lot of maths and to enjoy it.
Whoa.
Now that
is new. Yeah, Harry seemed to have had that influence on a lot of boys in mathematics in particular, because there was this blockade, this wall that people had set up.
Mental block.
Harry just made it look very, 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 very simple.
That's right.
Now, Trev, TD, you have a post-nominal of retired colonel, but that term retired is so misleading right now, Trevor, because if people only knew what your life has become, or what that they would actually discard it. But let's put it in context. It's retired lieutenant colonel, but you are still sort of, I guess, called on from time to time to give your insight into the goings on at the cadet corps and so on. But that retired thing is very, very misleading, because you went on to St. Augustine after your A-levels, and I think you did a stint at UWI here in Cape Hill first, and then went on to St. Augustine and studied engineering, came back and worked at the Light and Power Company. Now that was phenomenal in itself. I have to tell you that we, myself included, were very proud of that achievement. Let me encapsulate what it was like at the Barbados Light and Power. You don't have to go into all the details, because you and I have had very, very in-depth discussions as to what you had to navigate there. But tell me what it was like as being a young engineer at the Barbados Light and Power.
Well, to be honest with you, right, Light and Power was like a continuation of Combermere. It is so interesting that it makes me wonder sometimes about my life, because, as I said, at Combermere, I mentioned Harry Seeley, but then there's H. Dighton Maynard, as you well know, who at Combermere was it's not possible to articulate the impact that he's had on my life.
But if you ask Dighton to articulate, he will certainly articulate, because his command of the language was exemplary.
No, I can tell you stories about Dighton. I mean, the reason that I got involved in the cadets at the officers level is because of Dighton. It isn't because I wanted to do it. I am not going to lay claim that I was all this nice altruistic person who wanted to do all these things. I actually like this retired thing where you don't have to do anything, but somehow people turn up and make me do things, and then they don't regret it. Dighton made me get involved. Well, he met me one day at the school and said, before you leave, I need to talk to you. No, after knowing him
But
for
you know
many
what I
years.
mean. You know what I mean right there.
Exactly. So
No.
as soon as he turned his back, I headed for my car.
Trevor, I need to have a word with you before you go.
That's exactly what he said. And as soon as he turned around, I headed for my car because he knew what that meant. When they opened the door, he was standing on the other side. And what he told me then is that he needed me to join the defense force and to come and do some work with cadets because I owed it to cadets because of what cadets had done for me. I mean, he didn't
How can
ask
you
me
say no
anything.
to that? How we can
Huh?
say no to that?
I said no, but he didn't hear. If you see what I mean. I explained that I didn't have the time, that I was too busy, all sorts of things. But then you asked about Lightning Power, right? So I went into Lightning Power, having been prepared by Combermere, and then to some extent by St. Augustine. And met a set of people in there, people like Claude Franklin, for example. And the kind of challenges in there that you got the impression that Combermere had prepared you for that. So my experience at Lightning Power at that time was a company going through real technical difficulties. I mean, we used to have lots of shutdowns and breakdowns and engineering type problems. And then we went on that we had lots of industrial type problems. And the preparation for Combermere to go into Lightning Power and then to actually build on that. When now I look back on it, it is almost as though it is some kind of plan, but it wasn't my plan. It just worked out that way.
Right.
But Lightning Power was a good experience for me too.
But you didn't stay quiet at Lightning Power, and I wondered because at Lightning Power you actually formed as a founding member of the Ready Kilowatt Co-op Credit Union. And let me ask you this: at what stage were you motivated not only to start that, but at what stage did you find yourself saying, "We need to do this," and then realizing, "I gotta do it"?
David, it did not work out like that. How the co-op started, let me tell you in a couple of sentences. One day I went into work, and I was talking to somebody on the way to work, and they had started a buying club. So I just a lot of bravado. I went to the office and said, "Well, fellas, here's what I was going to do. Everybody have to give me $100. This is back in 1980. $100 was a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
I was just making sport. As soon as I said that, the fellow in the office, the fellow called Mark King, took out $100 and put it on my desk. And then Freddie asked me past, found out what was going on. He put $100. By the end of the day, I had $5,200. You understand what I'm tell you? Now, my plan really was to take the couple $100, make a list of who gave me, and then kind of get back everybody $100 with some excuses why, this. Of course, after when you got $5,200, you can't just give it back. So then I actually had to do something with it. And then after some research and enlisting some technical help in the form of a fellow called Freddie Adamson, a large fellow, but
I know Freddie. Yeah, Freddie was a cadet with us. Yes, of course, Freddie's a good friend of ours. Yeah.
And I enlisted some expertise, and actually that's how we started that first co-op. And then we formed the credit union. There's now almost a $70 million operation.
Whoa. So
it wasn't that I had this great vision. And I mean, tell you, I was just making sport. First, just can't take a joke.
But TT, at some point, instead of passing it on to somebody else, you recognize that you had to do it. It was yours.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
You know that for Combermere. Once you start to do something, you actually finish it. I mean, and challenges you almost expect them. So your challenge is no excuse to stop. It's just an excuse to work harder or to get around it or to find a way around it.
Yeah.
So it is this persistence kick in after you get started.
So did that experience, having been the founder member of that particular institution, was that the one that motivated you to move on further in the cooperative credit union movement? Because your bio speaks of so many organizations that you've headed. How did you manage to juggle all that time, and where did the impetus for moving on with the credit union movement? Because the passion with which you speak about the credit union movement knows no bounds, because you keep touting the fact that it is in fact the most successful business in the country. And the model should be actually expanded island-wide and even Caribbean-wide. So tell me, how do you manage to juggle all that time with all these institutions that you were heading, and then the impetus to move forward with all the various credit union moves? I'm going to come to the fact that you were the founder member of the Cooperators General Insurance. That's a major move, Trevor.
Yeah, but you see, you keep putting this thing, like the way you put it, somebody would think that I sat down and come up with this great vision and I decided to do these things. Typically, I would shoot out my big mouth, like something would happen. And they would say, but why don't we just do that? But that's such a simple, straightforward thing. And they would say, oh, that's what you think? Well, you go ahead and do it.
That's exactly, yeah.
And then, of course, you can't not do it. So then there's no question about failure. So once you commit to doing it, then you make it work. And then once you make things work, people find other things and say, I bet you can't do that. then you have to do it. You have no choice. You see what I mean? The unfortunate thing, but the fortunate thing for me is that I actually enjoy these things. You mentioned the cooperative. I mean, I told you, I got into that by accident, so to speak. But I'm telling you, right? The cooperative organization is the most efficient, effective, cost-effective. I mean, it is the best form of organization, not in Barbados, in the world. And there are international cooperative organizations that are multi-billion-dollar operations, extremely successful. It's just that unfortunately in Barbados, because we have this plantation history, we never experienced that. But across the world, across the US, across Europe, cooperatives where businesses are owned by the people who actually use the services, the ultimate form of organization. And what we are trying to do, what I've now reached the stage now, what I'm trying to do is to make that something that is common in Barbados, where the ordinary people, we get them to invest, and they then get to own the assets of the country and to benefit from the returns and all that.
It's amazing. Yeah. But I think that the challenge, and you've spoken about this before, private, is that level of success needs to be translated to the ordinary person who understands what success really looks like, because they see it running, they see the organization, they can go in, they can borrow money at very, very at the best of terms, but they don't see it as a success the way you're so passionate about it, and then of course your input into the Barbados Association of Professional Engineers, which is something that's can't be taken too lightly. You've been president of that association for God knows how long. You're still the person that they look up to. You're still the one that makes that lets people understand that that for every solution, every problem that we have, there is an engineering solution. And in fact, if I make sort of segue into the renewable energy space and the current situation, I think it is widely accepted now that your organization was really not consulted as much as it could have been in the policy framework that now helps to govern this. And in fact, you're having to do some corrective work. Am I correct?
Well, if you start me talking about engineering, then you're gonna have a problem with time. See, because engineering from the time I can remember, I always wanted to be an engineer, not because I understood what engineering was, but because my father worked at Waterloo's factory and he was called factory engineer. And the sort of person he was, I always wanted to be. My father was this fellow that he had the attitude, right, that there was nothing that cannot be fixed. There's nothing that cannot be made right. No, he said there's nothing that can be too complicated that you cannot fix it. And that's how I remember him, for example. And I always wanted to be like that. I later on found out that that's what engineering meant. So that's how I got into engineering. In the case of BAP, I mean, and I think it's because of that attitude that actually drives me with engineering. But the truth is, nowhere in Barbados and in most of the world do people consult with engineers enough. Because if you understand, an engineer fellow who you call, right, when you have something to do that is not possible. An engineer is the fellow who you need to do the impossible. Now, a country that actually understands engineering is China, for example. China has been run for the last 30 years largely by engineers. And if you look at the way they operate compared to almost every other country in the world, Japan is probably an exception to who did that to some extent. And you will see the different mentality as they go about solving problems. So to that extent, I have been arguing that in Barbados, one of the fundamental mistakes we make is trying to solve complex, I dare say, impossible problems with political solutions, correct, legal solutions, economical solutions. But the truth is, and what's different about engineers is that the first thing you learn in engineers is the laws of nature, how the world works. And once you understand that, then you have to spend a long time learning how you can now work within those laws to get the results that you want. You never get good results working against nature, like the lawyers think, for example, and some of the economists think. So to sum up what you just said, you can never consult with your engineers too much when you have really complex problems to solve.
If you had to be given not only the power but the all the tools that you need to fix a few institutions here, because I know that you've had your stint at the BNSI as well, and other places. What would you say would be your first task, and how would you marry things like BNSI, BAPE as they try to bring the country to a level where you know that you can have solutions to problems? What would you do for RTD?
You just said that my resume shouldn't be on one page. I know you asked me.
Yes.
So you want to fit this in an hour? But that is a very good question. But let me tell you the truth, right?
Mm.
The interesting thing about Barbados is that it isn't for lack of resources. It's not for lack of quality leaders. One of the
And
things
repository of knowledge and intellect. No,
the
we have
talent
that.
is unbelievable. The problem is that we don't leverage it, and we don't put the wrong pegs in the wrong holes and the square pegs in the square holes. We actually kind of select pegs based on who knows who, which party you're attached to, which school you went to. You see what I mean? That is a fundamental mistake because a lot. I mean, a lot of the problems are actually not that complicated, and the resources needed to solve them are not elusive. We actually have them in Barbados, but we have been misusing leadership resources for a long time, and we have been paying the price for that.
Oh, that's a mouthful, Trevor. And it's actually been done in a very diplomatic way. So, I mean, they're not going to send any black helicopters for you right away.
Well, they won't be new. They will have to join the line.
Yes. Now, I want to carry that and expand that because I know if you had to choose a passion right now, it perhaps will be the credit union movement and its expansion. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe that we are right. I'm right in saying that the credit union movement and that expansion and the dissemination of the information that leads people to understand the power that they have collectively. Okay, and to that end, a passion of mine as well too. You are now into a brand new transformative initiative, in which you have been the person and the entity to jump boldly into a space where people have avoided like the plague, and to take over a government-led organization, dissolve it into two entities. And I speak of the Barbados Agricultural Management Company, which is actually a state-owned enterprise charged with the mandate of food security and making sure the sugar industry and that is kept alive, etc. But was a losing entity where money was pumped into it ostensibly because it was it absorbed a lot of labor and it was a foreign exchanger and etc. But the mandate was to take this losing entity and make it into a profitable entity. And the architects were there, and you have jumped right into it. And now this retired Colonel Trevor Browne is now the chairperson of two companies, one called Agricultural Business Company and one called BESCO, which is the Barbados Energy and Sugar Corporation. Trevor, take us through, I guess it was been about a 12-month process, but take us through how transformative. I want the audience to understand the level of transformation and how huge this is for for Barbadian society after a 400-year-odd history of plantation control over the sugar industry. Tell me how you encapsulate that in a few minutes.
Well, it's transformative, and it's more than 400 years. I mean, the whole history of Barbados has been one of plantation ownership, where people at the bottom were really just units of labor, and the rich few at the top actually own all the certainly land assets, and therefore all of the assets. So what this transformation seeks to do and has effectively done really is to turn that triangle upside down, so that you don't have a situation where large numbers of ordinary Barbadians, and all Barbadians actually have the potential to do it by joining the co-op, now own these assets, something like 4,500 acres, well, control of 4,500 acres of agricultural land in Barbados, and the only sugar factory. And it is actually a significant change around. Now we've been fully in charge for a little bit, just about a month now, I think, just over a month, a few days over a month, and already I can tell you, right, that far from being a loser, what we're seeing now is that this has the potential to be a game changer. Even before because when we first got involved, we bought the story that this was a losing enterprise and things were, there's no hope and all that. What we're saying now is that, and we got involved because we could see the bringing in renewable energy to be a game changer for that. What we found out is that even without the renewable energy, just with proper management, with prudent leadership, with utilizing the resources that you have on board in terms of staff, that even from the sugar point of view, this is going to be phenomenally successful. I mean, it is actually amazing. And this is the same sort of thing that I have. It's typically what I found. I mean, this is something I got into because of renewable energy, and I realized what was happening with renewable energy. I realized the value of land asset in the future of renewable energy, and it led to this. But just like with the cadet corps, just like with engineering, once you get into something and you bring the Combermere spirit to it, and once you come to it with if you listen to the school song properly, that's a really interesting
we
school
hear,
song.
we listen, we do listen. Yes.
This ever upward to the light and onward, that if you live like that, you cannot but get good results. And that's what we've been finding. I mean, the more that we expose and ourselves to what is happening and what the potential is, and start to put the right people in the right place and make the right decisions. In short order, we actually see that things are looking far, far more positive than we could ever have anticipated.
And added to that is that behind all this is the phenomenally successful credit union movement and the company that you at the arm of the credit union movement, Co-op Energy, which you would also have founded, which gives the average Barbadian a chance to own a stake in the energy production of the country. Speak to that for a couple of minutes, Trevor. How transformative that alone is.
Yeah, very briefly, the truth is, over the last 30 years, I've been saying it over time. I'm saying it because I'm hoping that someone will challenge me. That the most efficient, successful operation in Barbados has been the credit union movement, collectively. Back in 1984, the credit unions probably had less than $1 million in assets, total assets. In 2024, it is over $3 billion. But more importantly than that, you're talking about over approaching 200,000 active members who actually trust us with their money. They actually put their savings in the credit union and they trust the credit union. Now, what you mentioned Co-op Energy. Co-op Energy now is the next phase of cooperative development. So financially, we've done extremely well. Where Barbadians have not been doing well is the area of investing, because investing in productive enterprises is where you can build generational wealth. And Co-op Energy is the cooperative approach now to do what the credit unions did in financing, to do that in investing and in business and in operations and things like that. And they started well. And we're not starting from scratch, because you're starting now with significant resources. And then I'm not talking dollars again. I'm talking about management resources, accounting resources, legal resources. We have people in the credit union movement now who are the biggest credit union in Barbados is $1 billion operation. Do you understand that? $1 billion operation. So there's a fellow who, if he was here, he look just like you or me. And he runs this $1 billion operation and has been doing it successfully for the last number of years with outstanding results. Those kind of resources now we have available with the project I'm doing in Sugar Industry. I can call them then for guidance, for assistance. Previously, I would have to look overseas to bring somebody in certain specific areas in finance and insurance and things like that. I can now turn anywhere and find those kind of results because of the cooperative movement in Barbados, because of the credit unions.
So I think the honest question now I have is you would have embraced or perhaps in the process of creating the architecture for a real strong educational program for your members to understand this. What direction are you taking that in, and how is that going?
A central part of any kind of cooperative operation is education. The critical thing is getting the ordinary members to understand, first of all, the power of the principles of cooperatives and the value of getting involved and actually of teamwork, of us working collectively to achieve a common goal. And that is driven by education. And it is an area that needs to be improved in Barbados. And we will be working on it. We will be working on that. So collectively, the movement is now, you're going to see a new phase of cooperative education where people understand the power of this cooperative approach to doing things.
Mm-hmm. Titi, I'm going to come back to this because you know the passion I have for it, and I guess I know that our listeners are actually could be really interested in this particular transformation. But I want to touch a little bit on your experience in the Cadet Corps. And as you know, we have lost a stalwart a few weeks ago in the form of Major Patrick Skeet, a close friend of both of us. What would you want to say in about 30 seconds about Patrick, Trevor?
We can't say anything in 30 seconds about Patrick. Patrick is the opposite to me. As I told you, I got involved with the cadets because Combermere saw me one day and I wasn't able to get away. And he refused to take no for an answer. And he insisted that I put in at least 3 years. This was in 1991. And I was there till 2014. Patrick lived for cadets. Patrick
Yes, he did.
loved
Yes, he
cadets,
did.
loved children. Patrick was the person that inspired me. That, I mean, the truth is, I when I first got involved, I said, well, okay, you can't tell Combermere, no, you know that. So we're
No.
going to do the 3 years and then say, well, thank you. Are you happy now? Move. But when you work with Patrick Ski, you can't do that. Patrick, he became a dream about cadets. He had all these great things. And the biggest mistake you could do in life is to have some impossible dream and then come and tell me about it, because I will make it happen. So Patrick came one day and said, man, remember the old days we used to have these Canadian tours and all that? We used to cadets
The
were
exchange camps. Yes,
exchange
that's
camp.
right.
So Patrick said, man, it's a pity we can't do it again. So he said, well, why can't we do it? He said, well, because the Canadians have a rule saying that they can no longer come down this year. I said, oh, gosh. I pick a phone and call a random fella in Canada, an officer. Just look on the internet and saw his name and called him, right? And it turns out that he was engaged down the same time he was engaged down in 1971, I think it was.
Oh, that's right. When you went to Canada for your exchange. Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you then, Trevor?
Yeah, I can't remember.
16?
17 or so.
16, yeah, okay.
16 or 17.
Yeah.
But here's the joke. Gagetown is almost 500 square miles.
Oh.
Bigger than Barbados. But the only thing I had in common with this fellow is that while talking to him, it turns out that we were both in Gagetown in 1971. So I told the fellow, no, we are looking at these exchange camps and all that. I said, you weren't get, but I'll get back to you. You know, like a couple of weeks, Mark calls him back and comes up with some clandestine plan that we will start an informal exchange. And once it works well for a year or two, yes, in about 5 years, we had a full-fledged thing called the International Cadet Challenge Camp. That with cadets from England, Canada, all throughout the Caribbean coming to Barbados. I mean, and cadets really loving it, and the officers loving it. But that came out because Patrick said, man, it would be such a great thing to do that, but you know, that's not possible. You shouldn't say that to an engineer.
So to say that to Trevor Browne.
You can't, not to any engineer. You can't say that to an engineer. Because if I think you say it's impossible, we'll find a way to do it. Now, of course, not that you don't break some eggs, because obviously a lot of people, what happens is that
you get an omelette, you get a nice omelette. Go ahead.
I don't have problems with breaking eggs. That's one of the problems I have. So you always make some enemies along the way, but that's life.
Yeah. We understand fully, because there's a detail we don't want to bring up here. Yes. And I recall the indefatigable, and you still are actually, Sergeant Major, with his tinted glasses perched on the tip of his nose, bellowing orders. And I have to say, I remember my very good friend, in fact, my god brother, who was at the Lodge School. I think you would know Richard Graham. He was. I think he was in St. Augustine with you as well too.
He was the best man at my wedding.
You're kidding. How small this country is. No, I remember Richard was also Sergeant Major at the same time you were, and we met at a parade, and during a break, we were chatting and so on. I remember Richard told me that sometime after, he was Sergeant Major and so on. I said, well, you know T.T. Browne? I said, yeah. I said, but Richard, I mean, he's my brother and thing, but you are the second best Sergeant Major in Barbados. This is what I said. No, you have to pay me for that, T.T. And he said, no. Lodge School has the best Sergeant Major. I said, yes, second best to Combermere School. Because that time, T.T. Browne was my Sergeant Major, and nobody challenging T.T. So I have never billed you for that, T.T., but I just let you know that
you can send the bill. We talk.
I said that. So, but I have to say though that the days that we've had cadet in the camps that we had in Oxnard, I remember we tried telling people that Oxnard had one structure on it, and that was that old mill wall. One structure. Oxnard's got 1,500 houses now. Unbelievable. We camped at Oxnard when it was bush, and it was amazing. We had some amazing times in the Cadet Corps. But I have been talking to you a lot, and I know I want to jump back to a lot of the things at the unit, because that's my passion. And I wonder if any of our other guests, our hosts, people like Hess and Charlie Pell, who were also in the cadets and came under your command from time to time, if they have anything that they wish to say. There's some photographs that we have, and I can let Charlie bring them up on the screen. Some of the blast from the past, and here we are. Explain these photographs to me before we bring in anybody else. Here, now this photograph, the first one, top left, is we're in Canada, was it?
Yes, that was one of the Canadian exchange camps in the early 70s.
Right. I'm going from left to right. I think this is you in the science lab. Where was this?
This is chemistry titration. This would be when I was in fifth form, I think.
Right. So who did you have? You had Barrett, Mickey, or who you had?
Yes, I
Ah,
think, yeah, Mr. Barrett, yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. And then we have I think this is I'm thinking that's Charlie Bell in front there. This parade that we're on here.
Which,
Uh,
which, which one is that?
there's the third from the left. I'm looking at here now.
No, that's Bradshaw.
Oh, Brady. Okay, right.
That's Bradshaw, yes.
Um, the drum corps. I see. This is the firing range at Waterford. I would imagine top bottom right.
That's right. That's right.
Right. And there are pictures of you of us. That's probably a hiking.
That's one of the hikes, yes.
Yeah, one hiking platoon.
With Justice Bell now standing in the middle there now.
That's correct. Justice Francis Bell,
That's right.
brother of Charlie Bell, who was the CEO, CSUO at the time. Charlie, flip that and bring up some more photographs if you don't mind.
You sent me digging for these. I mean, I hadn't seen these pictures for so long, to be quite honest.
But this is what this program is all about, man. And this top left seems to be a parade that we were holding at the school. Is this a drill parade, a display that we were holding at the school?
And you know that they didn't make those regular events at the school.
That's correct. Yes. And for speech day on so on, we were actually asked to do that. We did have some drill competitions. We had an active shooting range. So a lot of things that have changed at TT and things that we would love to see come back. We would love to see number 3 company or at least.
Why are you on that, right? Let me say, right? That's something I wanted to say for a long time. The Barbados Cadet Corps, for this whole 100 years, right, has performed a role in Barbados in terms of leadership, development, and discipline among a critical core of the young people in Barbados that has not been appreciated by the overall community. It's mostly been appreciated by people who benefited from the experience. Right. I mean, and certainly I cannot put into words, I don't know what my life would have been like if I had not been through Combermere and through the Cadet Corps. That's the honest truth. And I could imagine that people who did not benefit from that experience would not know what they're missing. But Correct. From a country's perspective, somebody needs to understand what is being lost by losing. And what was really critical about this, and what was most inspiring about the cadets, was really not so much the cadets, but the core of volunteers, officers who actually work with those children, becoming like parents. I mean, in some cases, better than parents to dozens and sometimes hundreds of children.
That's correct.
You cannot argue the value of that to a country. Right. And yet what we have focused on instead, and I've been arguing about this time, is instead of taking that proactive approach with our positive students, what they do is wait until the students fail and then come up with something called a youth service, because the ones that already have a stigma, and then try to recover those when you could have corrected that problem up front by getting them into something that you could core positive.
Right.
It can never be big enough. That the cadet corps should now be about 7,000 or 8,000 children in Barbados. That's what it should be.
Wow. TT, I've often told the students when I ever get a chance to speak to them, I often tell the students, and especially the senior students, I caution them about not only the deportment, but I also say to them that somebody at this school, some youngster has just come into school, has already chosen you as a mentor. Understand that. I remember going to the school and looking at the people like Andy Osborne and Trevor Shepard as real people that I wanted to emulate. And a question is coming up here in the chat. Any of those students or even teachers at the school when you first went created that impression of you that you wanted to emulate?
Are you kidding? Numerous. I mean, look, let me tell you. You know how I joined the cadets actually? One day, right? A Friday when I was in, I think it's second form.
I know Jeffrey Seeley is supposed to be a cadet.
But that's what I'm going to tell you, because I was actually just watching these fellas march drilling and that sort of thing. I mean, I was just fascinated. Why are they all doing the same thing and all that? And this fella comes up to me with this big stick and says, "You fall in." Well, I didn't know what the man meant, but he had a stick. So I joined the list of fellas and the left turn, right turn, all that. I asked the fella next to me, "So how me fall in?" The fella said, "Well, you asking me to tell me fall in too?" This is a student. It was either Seeley. I think it may have been Jeffrey Seeley,
Yeah.
And then the next week, I just found myself back there again. But I didn't go up and say, "Well, this is a good thing. Let me join the cadets." The man just looked at me and told me, "You fall in." That's what I got.
And that was it.
That's the kind of mentorship. I mean, you just wanted to be like these fellas.
Yes. I remember John Nurse bringing me to tears one day. He was asked to speak at a junior Combermere week and lecture to the students. And I'll say this about the cadet corps and the discipline. And I'm going to use John Nurse as an example. I remember being the coordinator of that particular week of activities as our typical Combermere week. And I remember of all the persons, I think John was the only cadet or military person that we had. Of all the persons, I gave strict instructions to as to how to present their lecture, how to present their talk, because you're talking to children. So remember, it's not about you. Right. It's about them, and you connecting with them to show them that you were there once. So in other words, keep that interest. And I said, John, what I need you to do is do X. John followed it to a T, and it was by far the best presentation I have seen, because John followed my instructions. And afterwards, when we met in the principal's office, I said, John, I want to congratulate you on your career, and I want to thank you for what you did this morning. And I said, we are very proud of you. And John held me by my shoulder and said, David, I have to thank you, your brother, and people like that, because as a little boy entering the first form and peeping through the window and watching you march on that parade, I made my mind up in the first form that military was my career because I watched you. And he brought me to tears. And I'm saying, here's this youngster already choosing me and my brother and other people as mentors, and we not knowing it. So I caution people about this, And one of the things I heard Margot Green and the young women who formed the female cadets in 73. What I heard them say was that they were so blown away by the transformation that these young men made from a classroom to the parade square, where I could be sitting next to a sergeant, my platoon sergeant, as buddies in the classroom, and get on the parade square and having to defer to his orders. So they were actually blown away by that. And the level of discipline that I would have got and people would have got through the cadet corps is indescribable. And I don't think, as I agree with you, not enough tribute is paid to it. Now, you got a couple of photographs here again, and I want to ask you about this one here on the bottom, second from the left, from the bottom, bigger games this time around. This is when you were also with the Olympic Association, weren't you?
Yeah, well, you presumptuously assume that if I had to choose, it would be cooperatives. But the truth is, there was a point in my life when I was very, very interested in sport. I'm coming out to the table tennis too, because the thing about sport has the ability to impact on significant numbers of young people at a very critical stage in their life. And it is possible to actually impart significant disciplinary improvements at the socially through sport. So I became very involved with sport from table tennis point of view, and then I was on the Olympic Association. And in fact, I spent probably about more than 12 years, I think, as a director of the OA. Now, one of the things that happened in there is that, and I'm one of that complain a lot. So I complain that we should really have some kind of games in Barbados to bring all the people together. And everybody with the possible exception of I don't know if you know Mr. Austin Seeley.
I know Austin, yeah.
Right. He's the one that agreed with me that everybody thought it was impossible. How you can have games in Barbados? The stadium is a mess. You don't have the facilities. We don't have a history. Accommodation is experienced. So you should never say to an engineer that something is impossible. So obviously I volunteered to do it. And we created this thing called the Barbados Independence Invitational Game. Right. And it actually went very, very well for a couple of years. Well, until I kind of, it's technically it's still in place, but I think it is actually quite significantly. But this is one of the things that I kind of got involved in when I was on the BOA, and that was very, very interesting.
Whoa. I'm moving from left to right at the bottom again. The photograph that jumps out at me is the credit union launches new insurance company. And I wish to state that I want to start a petition to name that building after Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Browne. I know you can say no, but basically your impact.
No. The building has already. The building has a name already.
I understand that, but that's not. It is. I know it's not you, but the fact that you could move from a agency which collects people's money, keeps it, lends it out, makes some money, and move presumptuously into a space that was not yours, called insurance. Trevor, tell me what that was about. Tell me what was your thinking then.
I'll tell you, right? That is even as I speak, that is the most traumatic thing that I've ever done in my whole life. Like that's where I actually got gray hair coming out of that. So it's basically what it all started maybe every year at our annual jam. Maybe we'd invite someone to give a speech. So Dr. Frank Allen came to the Hilton that year and gave the usual speech. No man, you all have $10 million. You should be. What the year before somebody said you also have a supermarket. The year before that somebody said, why don't y'all have a bank? Dr. Allen came. I happened to be vice president that year, and he said y'all should have an insurance company, a general insurance company, so that you cost of insurance and all that. Now, whenever somebody come and make this speech, what the automatic thing to do, you would appoint a subcommittee, and that committee would look at the house, if you can go ahead and do that. So when Dr. Allen was finished, they appointed the subcommittee, and somebody nominated me as the chairman of that committee because I was the vice president. I told the people, do not make me president. If you make me chairman of this committee, you all will get insurance company whether you like it or not. So said, so done. But let me tell you, it was stress. The credit union movement divided in two. People, my name was in the papers, like every day, people saying that just the same thing with the sugar industry. No, that would never work.
I was just about to ask you. This pushback is nothing to you.
That was worse than this. It was actually, that's why he was running from Combermere, because when he told me, I want to talk to him. I thought he was seeing these things in the newspaper, and he was coming from, well, wait, you were one maker this, and you in the paper every day getting a curse. So I was running because I thought he was going to lambaste me. I didn't know he wanted me to come and work at Cadence. But that insurance company was a really, really, really interesting experience, but really rewarding. That is now, $100 million. That's the best insurance company in Barbados now.
Yes, it is. It is.
Well run. The service is first class. I feel a level of pride when I go in there. It was well worth all the cussing I get.
But TT, encapsulate for me the type of thinking that would have caused the pushback and what you're up against.
It's lack of self-confidence. It is that we need to develop the confidence in ourselves that you can do things. I got that in Cadets because in Cadets, when you're a sergeant major, there's no such thing as you can't say no or you can't do that. Yeah, there has to be a way to do it. So when they come into my life as an engineer, or even when they get involved in a project like that, there's no such thing as no. It's just a matter of how you will do it. One or two people may get hurt. Somebody may be upset with you. But the goal that you have in mind is the ultimate objective. And obstacles are just interesting challenges. And I apply that to everything I do. And the insurance company, I didn't know anything about insurance. I learned. And I was the chairman for the first 4 or 5 years till it was running well. And then I just walked away, did something else.
Amazing. Charlie, do we have any more slides that we could bring up?
I thought I had too many slides there.
No. And Jeffrey Bostic being
this is. I was president of table tennis then. And Jeffrey is an excellent table tennis player.
Yes, he is. Yes.
I still think that I could take him out at this stage now because he
was a little bit rusty.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can. Yeah, I'm sure you
can.
Yeah,
but he was probably getting a award. I think he won the veterans championship that year or something. And then there were a whole bunch of children in the background that won different levels. So I happened to be handing out the awards, and he happened to be collecting one at that time.
Right. Now, Hess, I see you posted that you have another question. Charlie, you want to bring some images up on the screen for our viewers and see if they have some questions for TT before we started going to the home stretch. Is it possible to have the images of our guests, of our viewers online there? Let's give Charlie a few seconds to bring that up. Here we are. That's me, TT. My brother is supposed to be on here actually, but he did say he would. Hey, Hess, there you are. Cadet Nate from
Mr. Brown. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I might have a question for you because we all went through Combermere. When for most of us, I would think that when we got there, we were very shy. We didn't know what direction we would go in. We were looking at people to emulate, as you said. What would you say to the students at Combermere now to tell them, what to think, how to focus, where they should head to, give them confidence in that there is, a lot that they have a lot to offer and to get involved?
I think the strongest thing I could say to them is that to the extent that they may feel insecure or shy or not in a position to compare with people who they see with lots of titles behind their name and all that, they can rest assured, right, that when we were at school, we were worse than they were. We were shy. We didn't know, because they know more than we did know, because they
They
have
absolutely
also,
do. They absolutely do.
they are so much better now than we were when they were there. So if people like myself and Colonel Bostic, for example, and David Straughn and you, if we could have reached this level, but there's nothing stopping them from going way, way beyond what we did, because they are already better off than we were at that stage. The truth is, what made the difference for me was the confidence that I was able to the confidence that came from people around me, especially from the teachers, from me. I mean, you see, there's a teacher at Combermere called Mr. Calvin Pye. Now, I gave Calvin, of all the teachers I had at Combermere, I gave Calvin more trouble than all the rest put together. Do you know that Calvin Pye is the person that made me? I always wanted to do engineering, but Calvin Pye is the person that made me go and do it. Because when I left school, I went back to school to teach maths for 1 year. That was the best year in my whole life. I didn't want to stop.
Wow.
So the year after that, I found myself in the staff room peeping around to see if they would let me in again. Calvin Pye saw me and said, hello, what are you doing here? The man, he made me go to UV and get my application forms. Sat down and made me fill them out. And chased me off. Because I told him, yeah, but I ain't got the money, you can't get this. And I said, how you gonna? He said, if you get on there, they ain't send you back. So once you got enough money to get to Trinidad, get from about here. My father would not have had the confidence to do that, nor the money to do it. I myself would never have dreamed of doing that. Calvin Pye tell me, let me tell you something. I don't want you to go here next week. Get on your plane and find yourself. And he told me, when you get on there, every morning go to student affairs and ask them if your bursary come true. He tell me after a couple of weeks, even if you don't got a bursary, they can find one for you to stop. So said, so done.
So you're saying get involved, get up off the sidelines, exactly. And because if you don't buy a ticket for the lottery, you can never win it.
Well, I would not have known that, but I learned that from Calvin, taught me that lesson and made a difference in my life. And so what I'm saying to these students now in school, and we had to say to them, is that don't feel insecure. But listen, the thing about Combermere is that people actually care about you, even though you don't realize it. And if you listen to the advice and you follow the advice, even though it may not make sense to you at the time, you will come to appreciate the value of having been at Combermere.
Brilliant. Anybody else in the chat? Charlie Pyle, did you come under the hammer of T.T. Browne when he was Sergeant Major? Charlie, here you are. You're muted, Charlie.
I wouldn't say the hammer, but he was one of my he may not have known it, but he was one of the mentors. He was one of the bigger boys that they looked up to, and one of the boys that they said, boy, I want to be like him, boy. I want to go there and march around and look sharp like that. And you know, people like Charlie Bell and Trevor Browne and Mr. Bradshaw. I don't know if you all remember Brady. Brady was a lot like Patrick Key, you know, very low key, but a real powerful character, somebody that would influence you, you know. And then of course, along comes Colonel Maynard, and that was the NRA, you know. He said, "Yeah, end up in Cadet Corps. That's it." And then you got to deal with people like Hess.
Well, listen, I wanna, if you guys are okay with this, I want to just jump forward again, TT, to your your current love and the one that's going to occupy your attention for maybe a few years to come. And of course, you know, I'm always here to assist and we will chat afterwards. And that is this new transformative dispensation of the agriculture and the sugar industry. Tell us what you would like to see so that the country and the work can spread. What would you like to see? Because I know my vision is that I like to see another 1,000 acres plowed back into sugarcane, because the myth that the sugar industry is dead, the myth that it is a dying industry and it costs money, needs to be dispelled first of all. We also need to push the certain knowledge that sugarcane is an excellent sequestration process for carbon dioxide. So in other words, it is a crop suited to Barbados. it can give us not only sugar, but more importantly, molasses, which will actually make our rum our own again, but also the feedstock for the energy. That's my vision to see. Tell me where you would like to see Barbados go in that, what direction you'd like to see us go for the next 12 months, 12 to 15 months, right now under your new dispensation, Trev.
Well, the truth is, after your question, I should just say amen, because basically that's actually what we're seeking to do. The truth, the reality is that far from being a loser, sugar is actually a really useful product to find yourself in. If you look at what's happening across the sugar on the world market now, that's particularly interesting. As you said, it is naturally suited to the climate of Barbados, especially with pending climate change issues. Sugar survives drought, something better than almost anything else. It protects the land from all the wild bush that we see when the sugar fails. So the current plan is to increase production significantly, mainly to increase feedstock, as you said, to replace. We spend about $1 billion a year buying fossil fuels.
Yes, correct.
So we can burn it to produce electricity, but we can also burn bagasse to produce electricity, and we can produce more bagasse by far than what we're currently producing. So we are actually structuring ourselves to do that. But even before that, sugar, we have defined sugar in a way that makes it look like a loser, because we think of sugar of what has happened in the past at the factory. But the truth is, before the factory, the planters have been doing extremely well in planting sugar. As you know, they didn't really stop. They actually do well. And after the sugar is produced, the retailers have been doing exceptionally well in selling sugar. And basically what we need to do is to take a holistic look at the market to see that sugar is actually a very profitable, productive business to be in. It also, as you said, it contributes to the food production because of the rotation situation. This is how we get potatoes and yams and all that on a regular basis. And then the potential to replace expensive fossil fuel with bagasse to produce electricity at base load is a critical opportunity. This is something that's done in Belize on a very large scale. Is that we're not reinventing any wheel. This is something that other countries do quite well. So rather than buying somebody's oil and burning it, we'll grow our own bagasse and burn that to produce electricity. Nothing wrong with that. So what I see going forward is that the whole industry taking a whole new turn for the future, being owned by large numbers of Barbadians. The owners now are all shareholders. All those the workers, the people who work in the industry, all own shares in the industry. That's one of the changes that we've actually brought to the industry. So they're now working for themselves to a large extent. So so now to educate Barbadians about what has changed and what is going to change even more in the future is the critical challenge. And I guess you'll be hearing let's talk a lot more about that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that would have been my concluding comment too, that the shatter the legacy, the slave legacy, and understand where the pushback is going to come from, because there are going to be those that expect failure, but we know better than that because we got a Combermere at the helm who's been through the Connect Corps.
Let me say it, David. That was my initial thought, but the truth is, right, you'll be surprised at the level of support we've got from all sectors of the country.
I'm
because
very
I think people want to see the sugar industry survive. Yeah. And I think based on the plans that we've been developing, I think people are coming on board to realize, this could work. Yeah. This will probably work. And they have been coming on board to be part of the solution. So even that has not turned out to be the kind of nightmare that we were worried about. It's actually working.
The economics are good too, because if you think about it, years ago, the input versus the output is about 83 cents on the dollar that remains in Barbados. So it is a good industry to get into. T.T. Browne, I am so honored and so happy that you've taken this time to be our guest on this. I want to thank Hess and Charlie Pyle for their questions and their contribution. I know that we are going to get maybe a couple of hundred viewers of this recording, and they're going to find it interesting, and they're going to probably ask you back, because this is the thing that happens with you. You open your mouth, and then people want to continue to have you back. You are now a fixture on Brass Stacks. So you can soon end up being a host of Brass Stacks at some point.
I know. Brass Stacks don't like trouble.
No, but you keep being the Rabble Rouser, because I think right after we soon we're going to have Caswell Franklin on this as well, because you Robert Rousers and you Union people have got to be featured prominently. Trevor, I really want to thank you. As you know how I feel about you in terms of our friendship and the mentorship that you've been for me and my brother and people like Hess and Charlie Pyle and all those of my ilk who have gone through Cadet Corps and have benefited from your leadership. And I want to thank you again for being a part of this particular interview. And it's proven to be extremely informative. I had great pleasure in taking the job as host of this particular program because it was you coming on. T.T. Browne, thank you very much. Here, folks, we have been interviewing Lieutenant Colonel retired, so he says, Trevor T. Browne, Combermerean, exemplary Combermerean, phenomenal Barbadian and Caribbean personality. Thank you again for your patronage. Thank you again for your listenership. And you have a very good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.